Hi, this is Heather Boyd, occupational therapist and founder of Nurture Squared. And tonight we have the next 30 minutes with Lara McCulloch, who is a marketing and branding expert. She has been working initially in corporate and now runs her own marketing and branding business. And has had some exciting adventures along the way. She's also mom to one pretty awesome little boy, and so she gets it when it comes to balancing building a business and raising a family. So Lara, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Me too. Me too. Now, I know you've been in the business of marketing and branding for 20 years, but there's been a lot that's happened between then and now. Do you want to fill us in a little bit on your niche or how you ended up being an entrepreneur?
Oh, that's a really loaded question. I was working agency side for about 15 years. And if anybody knows anything about the agency world, it's very dog eat dog. There weren't a lot of women in the industry. And so the opportunities weren't great. It's probably changed now, but back when I was in it the world. And so I climbed my way up the corporate ladder and was poised to take over my boss's position, and realized that that balance that you were talking about, the ability to kind of have a life and also have a business, wasn't there at all. And so I started my consultancy about 10 years ago. It would be January. I celebrated my 10-year anniversary. And my focus really is on small businesses. So originally it was small businesses between $2 and $10 million, and that's where I do my consulting. But then I have opened up coaching as well, and I do much smaller businesses than that. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, and really the lens that I look out of, or what I do for my clients, is help them understand how to position themselves in a crowded marketplace so their customers choose them and not the plethora of competition that they have available to them.
Well, I think a lot of us can relate to that idea, especially with how much things have shifted in business in terms of social media and marketing and internet and the noise.
Yeah.
That the idea of cutting through all that noise so that we can find the people that we can serve is a critical question.
Yes.
So I wonder if you can fill us in or chat a little bit about what you see as being one of the fundamental mistakes or problems that small businesses, especially those in the service realm, so allied health professionals, therapists, yoga instructors, Pilates instructors, those don't have product, they have intellect, expertise, and experience.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a great question. And I've worked with so many small businesses over the years. There is a common thread that small businesses have. Most small businesses have a desire to increase revenue. And a lot of small businesses go through ups and downs. Some years it's good, some years it's not so good. And conventional wisdom would tell somebody who's in a position where they want to experience growth and where they, really want to see an upsurge of revenue. Conventional wisdom says, okay, well, if something's not working, if you're not able to generate that revenue, what you need to be doing is you need to have a Facebook page, and you need to be, emailing your email list, and you need to be doing all of these things. Like you got to get out there with a blog, you got to get out there and constantly be out there. And the challenge for a lot of small businesses is lack of time and lack of resources. That's the reality, right? Or lack of revenue to be able to spend for somebody else to do things for them. And so what they end up doing is kind of following that conventional wisdom. They get a Facebook page, they start blogging, they start doing all of these things that are very time consuming. And what they end up doing is contributing to the noise as opposed to standing apart from it. And so fundamentally, the biggest issue that I see with small businesses is they haven't figured out why their customers should be choosing them. And especially in a service-based business, products can be oftentimes much easier to create a point of differentiation in a marketplace. With a service-based business, pretty much everybody will tell you we offer amazing customer service, or there's certain there's certain terms that we constantly hear over and over and over again. And even if you are really great at customer service versus your competitors, the problem with that, hanging your hat on that, is that your customers have no way of knowing unless they give you money and choose to do business with you. So in that pre-sale process, it becomes very difficult to articulate for a lot of service-based businesses, what makes me different? Why should people be paying attention to me? So that's the big challenge for a lot of small businesses.
Well, and as you're speaking, I'm reflecting on the number of us who are in service-related and nurturing-related professions. We tend, as a whole, if we had to describe general characteristics, tending towards introversion, tending towards modesty, not tooting our own horn. And so when you talk about that question of why should customers choose us, that I can just sense that there's a ripple through those that are listening to say, oh, that doesn't, how am I going to do that? Right. So I wonder if there is a way, what way would you see as bridging between knowing that that's what we need to do and actually having, I don't know whether it would be a leap of confidence or a leap of faith or just get your head down and just grind through. How do we get to that point where we're able to say, this is why I am right for solving your problem?
Well, at the end of the day, when you're sitting down with a prospective customer, so it depends on the business that you're talking about, but let's say you're sitting down with a prospective customer in a sales meeting, for example, which may or may not be so, you can look at an intake meeting as a sales meeting, right? You're sitting down with a new patient or a new client and they're interviewing you. They're sitting down and wanting to know about you. The reality is they actually don't really want to know about you. They want to know how you are going to help them. So either help them overcome their greatest pain or help them achieve their greatest dream a lot faster. So in some respects, understanding or unlocking that answer of why you has more to do with the person that you're sitting across from than it does with you. And I think that is a shift that a lot of people have to make, is to understand what I need to do first is I need to understand the person that I'm sitting across from. And I need to know, are they the right person for me? So can I serve them? Can I really help them? Is this the type of person that I want to work for or with? And once I understand that, I need to understand them. What's important to them? What do they value? What are their pains and obstacles? Where do they want to get to, and where are they today? And why haven't they taken the steps so far? What's kind of holding them back from doing that? And when you can unlock the answer to those questions, what you can now do is connect the dots back to you. So how do you help them get there faster? And if it's a matter of feeling insecure, or if it's a matter of, not wanting to toot your horn, so there's a discomfort, you do need to kind of get through that discomfort. You need to, if you don't feel confident selling yourself, no one is going to feel confident buying whatever you're selling. So you have to get through that. And maybe one way of doing that would be to take a look at customer testimonials, case studies, things that you've actually done, where you can reflect back on what other people said about you or what types of results you got for people. Then it becomes much easier, as opposed to saying, I'm really great at this. You can say to somebody, you know what, I worked with somebody who is exactly like you and they were in your exact position. And here's what we did together. And here's what the outcome was. And this is how I can help you. So if you need to kind of shift the dialogue a little bit, so it's less about being braggadocious and more about really connecting what their needs are with how you help them get there faster or more enjoyably, or whatever it is.
Well, I said there was a collective shudder at the idea of explaining why people should choose us. I think there's been a collective sigh of relief, as you've said, that it really is about the whole reason that we're in this industry in the first place, and that's to help people. If we can identify what it is that we can do to help people, that's the real key there.
Yeah. Yeah.
In terms of your work, I know that, you know, most of your business, you talk about smaller companies, 2 to 10 million, which for most of us in Nurture Squared would be, you know, shrunken down quite a bit from that. Most of us are sole proprietors or solo practitioners. Some of us have a team or a clinic, but still relatively small. We're not talking about national or large service or product companies.
Yeah.
I just wonder in what way would we, I don't want to use the word scale down because I don't think that's the right language, but to take that idea that you were talking about with trying to cut through the noise, but also knowing that one of those key communication tools is social media.
Right.
What would you say that would look like for a small company trying to reach out to those who have problems and challenges that we can solve?
So in other words, what could that social media, could that content be? Or I want to
what would the priorities be for reaching out in that way?
Yeah, so first of all, I should say I do work with clients who are much, much smaller. So I totally get the challenges that, you know, from a coaching standpoint, that I work with clients that are, you know, under 6 figures, some of them. So I understand those challenges. I know what it's like to run a, you know, to have a business where you're very lean and you've got to make an impact in the best way that you possibly can. So the first fundamental really is kind of going back to basics. So before you put anything on social media, you've got to understand what I call your disruptive cure, right? So a disruptive cure is basically how you disrupt your industry by sounding, looking, feeling different. But not just for the sake of looking, sounding, and feeling different, but by providing a cure. So really understanding who it is you want to serve and what pains them and how you can connect that disruption to a cure for them. So one of the first fundamentals is to really start out and really think about who your micro niche is. And that's a term that I coined. We've all heard the term niche, but a micro niche is like the smallest possible audience that you want to engage with, who have a shared set of beliefs and values and pains and challenges and obstacles and dreams, right? So if in order to kind of get to who your micro niche is, you might want to take a look at some of your patients or your clients that you've worked with over time. And I always kind of use this example of putting them into 3 buckets. So if you've got a list of names, you've got 3 buckets in front of you. One is your evangelist, one is your detractor, and the bucket in the middle is your clients. And we all are familiar with the evangelists, you know, the people who go on to sing our praises to anybody who will listen. We know our detractors. Those are the people we don't ever want to work with again. It wasn't profitable business. They were a pain to work with. The vast majority will kind of fit in the meh bucket, like they were good, not really memorable, probably made some money, you know, with them and it was profitable, but at the end of the day, they were, you know, nothing exceptional. And then you take that evangelist bucket and you really take a look at who those people were and you start to identify what are the common threads that unite those people together. And again, think about it from a standpoint of what are their pains or their frustrations, what are their values or their dreams or their hopes. And from there, you can get a really good understanding of who your micro niche is. Who is it that you work really well with and you serve really well and that they're profitable? Once you've determined your micro niche, you really need to do the next exercise, which is really understanding where are they now before they hire you. What is the state that they're in? And then where do they dream of being? So let's say you're a sleep consultant. Okay, so my position that I'm in right now is I'm not getting any sleep. I'm tired. I can barely get through the day. I know I've got a child that I've got to take care of, but I feel like I can't because I'm not getting enough sleep. They're not getting any sleep. They seem to be unhappy. I feel like an unfit mother. Where do I want to be? I want to be resting through the night. I want to feel amazing. I want to, you know, reconnect with my husband. You know, you got to think through all of those things. Like, what's the dream? And then what's preventing them from taking that step, right? So I don't know what I don't know. I don't know how to get this child to go to sleep at night. I literally don't know. What have they tried that hasn't worked in the past? So I tried, you know, I've gone to Dr. Google and I've tried all these things and it's just not working. Now what you've got to do is you've got to connect how you're going to get them from point A to point Z as best as possible, and how you're going to understand. You've got to break down for them, I understand those things that you tried that didn't work. There's nothing wrong with you. But here's how I'm going to do it differently for you, right? So by understanding those fundamentals, you're starting to build your disruptive cure. You're starting to really understand the language that you need to communicate, what you need to communicate. Now I can think about, like, what are the common frustrations that they have in the point that they're in right now? What are, their common misconceptions? What are the things that they're doing wrong that they want to know how to do better? All of those, all of that basic work starts to give the framework for what it is you want to share on social. What we end up doing if we don't have that stuff is we end up kind of piecemealing together things that we think are going to sound good, or they just happen upon our plate that we want to share, and they don't resonate with anybody. And we all have Facebook. We all know that 99% of it, we kind of just skim by, and then every once in a while something will come up that holds our interest. And that's because it's something connecting to a point that we're in right now that is a challenge for us, and it sounds like it might be a solution to that challenge, right? So we've got to, if we want to break apart from the noise and we want to connect with people, we have to understand those people. Does that make sense? So it's not about going, I could tell you, okay, well, here's, 10 different ideas you can think of to generate some great content on social. But at the end of the day, you need to understand your people. You have to go back to the basics and go back to the fundamentals.
And when you're working with clients through your business, is that generally what you've talked about, the process that you walk through with somebody and figuring out what a plan should be, or what content should be, or what the micro niche could be?
Yeah. So we start out with that micro niche exercise. Then I break down the disruptive cure into 3 parts. There's the rub, the gap, and the hero's epiphany. So the rub is understanding, once you've got that micro niche, what are the friction points for them, the real rub for the client or the consumer or the patient. The gap is, what are the opportunities that exist in the marketplace? So what are the common stories that exist that you want to challenge? And this is where disruption comes into play. People want, there's actually a fundamental shift in the way that people are buying products and services. They're buying less on features and benefits, because there's features and benefits are becoming so homogenized, so easy for people to replicate. You come out with some innovative way of doing it, you post it on social media, and tomorrow your competitor's doing it. So because of that, it's harder for people to pick based on features and benefits, and instead they pick brands that align with their values, or that share kind of stories that they already subscribe to. So we need to understand, what are the stories that are common in our industry. I did this with I'll give you an example because it sounds a bit abstract, but I did this with a skincare company that their micro niche was millennial men. And at the time when they launched, there was a story that existed in our society that men don't care about their appearances. Real men don't, right? Real men don't put on creams and lotions. Real men don't, when they get wrinkles, heck, I'm a man, I just got a wrinkle. They don't really care about that kind of stuff. But they wanted to challenge that, because they knew that really fundamentally millennial men were looking for permission to care about those types of things. And so that was a story that they began challenging. And by challenging that story, they created disruption in their industry, because they were saying something very different. So that's the disruptive cure. And then the last component was the hero's epiphany. And that's taking a look at, what do you do? What's your story? So especially for service-based businesses, what's your background? Nobody has the same story that you do. You have a set of experiences, you have a set of achievements, you have a set of things that you have kind of enrobed in your life that nobody can replicate. And it's at the intersection of all 3 of those things, the rub, the gap, and the hero's epiphany, that your disruptive cure kind of lives within. So we go through those exercises to set the framework for everything else we do in business. And it really impacts everything. It impacts how you hire, who you hire. It impacts how you run your operations. It impacts training. It impacts marketing. It impacts sales. It impacts everything in an organization.
Well, I like the language that you use in breaking that down, especially the gap, which we know, in terms of our skill level, no matter what niche that we're in it because we know that we have skills and knowledge to help fill that gap. But that hero's epiphany, I mean, I know the clients that I've hit that sweet spot with because it's the aha moment that I get. Like literally, they're saying, aha, oh, it makes so much sense now, or I get it. And then they get the buy-in to actually follow through with the strategies too.
Yeah.
Neat. Well, and there was one thing that was coming up in my mind as you were talking too. And again, I'm going to be thinking about that hero's epiphany for a while, because that really is, that's the pinnacle of a good match or a good fit with a client, or a good opportunity to meet and fill that gap and get to that point where we're helping them through.
Right.
Leading up to that, when it comes to, if we know what our micro niche is, we know who our ideal client is, we know, we've thought about what is their story so that we know how to speak to them before they're our clients.
Yeah.
But out there, in amongst all the noise, is this idea of, or some balance in giving away free content and giving away free material.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to a product, that free content can be information and explanations, or videos on how to use it, or videos on solving a problem. Yeah. When it comes to service industry in allied health or in healthcare, it's not always the treatment. It's sometimes literally the knowledge and expertise, like the brain. I think one of the people I interviewed last month said, "You're literally hiring my brain for the next hour." Right. So I wonder if you have thoughts or reflections on that idea of giving away free stuff, content, free ideas, blogs, information, and whatnot, without giving our whole brains away for free.
Yeah. I think there's a really good way of kind of distinguishing that. So it is tremendously important to be able to give people a window into how you think and why you kind of do what you do. Because people do business with people that they know, like, and trust. So the great thing about giving away content, whether it be video content or whether it be, written content or audio content, is that people can start to develop a relationship with you before you've ever met them. But the great way of distinguishing what content you do give away, because you don't want to get, of course, like if you have a special sauce, secret sauce, you don't want to give people the secret sauce, then they're not going to come and do business with you. They've got the recipe. So as opposed to sharing how you do something, you want to think about sharing what you do. So that might include, if you have a case study, like somebody that you've worked with, you can run through exactly what was their challenge, what were their obstacles, what is it that they wanted to achieve, what was their goal, and all that kind of stuff. And you can walk them through the fact that you did all these things. What you want to save is exactly how you did it. There might be little snippets of how you did it, but you don't want to give away all of how you did it. That's your kind of secret recipe. So that's, it really, the real answer is it totally depends on what the piece of content is and how it's going to be used and all of that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, that could be a good rule of thumb.
I also wonder if we tend, or maybe I won't speak for others, but whether I tend to underestimate the challenge of implementing strategies. I'm used to what they are. I know how to implement. Yeah. I could give even the breakdown of steps, but it's the walking through and supporting and implementing those things that maybe I tend to think it looks easy because I'm really familiar with it.
That's an absolutely fantastic point. Yes. So I do a lot of public speaking. I will stand up on a stage and I give everything away. I don't care. I stand up there because I want everybody in that audience to get as much as humanly possible from their time with me. Now, obviously the time frame is an hour or maybe a half an hour, so they're not going to get all the world's secrets. I just can't cover it all in that short period of time, but I don't leave anything off the table. I give it all. The benefit of doing that and the proof that I have received from doing that is all of the people who come up to me afterwards and say, "You're exactly what I need." They don't know how to implement what I've shared with them. They don't know how to, create the same success that I've created, but they know now that I'm the person who can help them get there. And the only way they were able to know that is by me sharing content with them.
Well, I guess one of our members especially will relate to this example. I suppose it's like reading all the best exercises to do,
Right.
but still having a personal trainer is going to be the thing that allows you to have the success in it.
Sure.
You could read every fitness book or read the best exercises out there and still not know how to actually do it properly or how to keep your motivation up or get in the habit. And that's where a professional would be able to fit in.
Yeah. And a lot of time, even if people have the information, like even if they have all of the information, the reason why we don't do things has very little to do with not having access to information. It's usually a lot of mental things, the reasons why we're holding ourselves back from kind of taking those success steps. So yeah, information is one thing, but there's a lot of other components that go into it to create success.
Yeah, I think it was someone earlier that had said information is cheap these days. We're in an information age. It is everywhere. It's what to do with that information that makes the difference.
Yes.
Now, I know we only have a few minutes left, so I wonder, I know, in your evolution of business, things have shifted and you've built a business that is successful and able to reach out with people with a certain process that works. I'm curious, just in terms of your development of your business, to what degree or to what extent is it challenging to settle in on something? How many evolutions did you have in your business before you felt like, and maybe the answer is you never do, that it's constantly evolving. But I wonder if you could speak to that idea of evolution of a business over time.
It's really tough it's a great question, and it's tough to nail down. It's kind of like when you hire a coach. You look back at the end of that coaching period with the coach and you think, did they really help me that much? Because you can't measure those little tiny shifts in thinking that have happened over time. So I kind of equate my business very similarly. I mean, what I do in my business hasn't changed in the last 10 years that I've owned the business, but there have definitely been fundamental tweaks and shifts that's happened along the way. I mean, I used to only do consulting with those $2 to $10 million companies. Now I do coaching for much smaller businesses. I can have a greater impact with far more clients than I could the other way. I've learned over time who I work best with and what type of personalities can really see success through. I've learned so many things about myself, and I've learned things about what I do, through this process of just having a business. So I think all of those things have added up quite substantially over time, but the shifts are so small and over such a long period of time that it's hard for me to really notice. At its basic form, I'd be like, no, I'm still doing the same thing today, 10 years later, that I started out doing with my business. But I know that's not entirely true.
Right. It's those micro shifts over time that it's only when you look back at that first entry in a journal or reflection on what your business plan for that year is that you think, holy smokes, things have shifted.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's clear that you enjoy being an entrepreneur and that you enjoy the work that you do. So your passion comes through loud and clear. How can people get in touch with you if they want to reach out or read up more on you? Where do they go?
So you can go to laramcculloch.com. So that's LARAMCCULLOCH.com. That's my website. I also run a Facebook page called Start Some Shift. So that's shift with an F, not to be confused with the other what you might think I said. So those would be the two best ways to get in touch with me. But if anybody wants to reach out and email me, they're more than welcome to, which is Lara@laramcculloch.com.
Okay, well, thank you, Laura, for being here tonight. This has been great, and I appreciate the time. I know, you're a busy mom with a babe that got down for bed, and I am the same. Things seem quiet in the house, but it means it's a good time to wrap up. So Thank you again for spending this last half hour with us.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome. Thanks, Heather.
Bye for now.
Bye.